Hi guys! Today we'll be recapping a story, How to Change Angst into a Feel-Good. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot. Enjoy! Set in what appears to be a prison cell, the story opens with a glimmer of moonlight peeking through the window bar, a chill in the air, and a man's fangs biting the arm of a girl with pink hair. Sure, this sounds like a spooky vampire story, but before we go there, let's check what happened. Rinatis is a gorgeous girl with long pink hair and blue eyes. And today, a man with brown hair runs up to her to give her a red ribbon as an early birthday present, as she turns 20 tomorrow. This touches her, but her mood immediately shifts when this guy shows her another ribbon clearly made of a higher grade material and requests that she give it to her older sister Estella. The son of a tenant farmer, Emule is an ordinary young man who is shy but kind. Since Emule's feelings for Rinatis' older sister is not a secret, Rinatis makes it clear that she will never give him a chance to date Estella. Emule can't disagree with her, so he shifts the subject and decides to carry the sack she's holding to the farm himself so she can have lunch with her sister, prompting Rinatis to hurriedly hand it over to him. However, it appears that the sack she's casually holding is so heavy that Emule trembles. Our girl, who is just like everyone else, maybe a little stronger, is content to live in a quiet village. Aside from living with her cranky father after her mother died, her life is manageable. Even though they aren't wealthy, they have enough food for one day, and most importantly, she has Estella. My goodness, her sister is stunning! She has the same pink hair as Rinatis, but her eyes are purple and she exudes a motherly vibe, perhaps due to the fact that she basically raised Rinatis herself. Despite her young age, Estella worked on people's farms and went in search of food, whether in the highlands or at sea. As Rinatis sees her older sister's beautiful smile, she knows she is the most important person in her life. Reina can't wait to be an adult tomorrow since she'll be able to do more to help Estella. However, when the clock strikes 12, memories flood her mind, and she sees her older sister being abused by a terrible guy. Estella promptly wakes up from her nightmare, but Reina remains silent as she realizes she's inside a novel she already read. Not just any novel, but an R18 angsty one called Karuo's Doll, about a male protagonist whose family has a history of madness. Usually, the condition fades as they get older, but the problem is, it runs rampant and kills them before they're even adults. The only way to calm them down is to ingest the bodily fluid of an enchantress, and that can only be done through, censored methods. Oh, you little rascal! Are you actually diving into those R18 novels? Now that she's back on the farm, Reina still can't believe she used to like reading these type of stories. But now her main concern is that the novel's female protagonist is her older sister, who will endure unimaginable cruelty at the hands of the male lead before dying alone in an underground dungeon. Of course, our girl will never let that happen, so she uses her birthday wish to ask Estella to run away and get married. Reina has been trying to persuade Estella to elope for the past week, harassing her at work, whispering, "Elope, elope, elope," while her sister sleeps, and even surprising her as shock therapy. Her sister must be quite patient. Reina starts getting frustrated since Estella is still not listening to her, despite the fact that she knows Estella likes Emule. Our girl seems to be correct, as Big Sister is blushing. However, Estella denies this, causing Reina to sulk because she knows she is lying simply because of the memories that have returned to her. According to the novel, Estella grieved in her prison cell because she missed Emule so much, and the fact that the male lead is so attractive but she won't let him into her heart proves she is truly in love with that sweet farmer boy. Reina's thoughts are interrupted when Estella wonders what she should do if she ever decides to run away with Emule, prompting Reina to reassure her that she will work as a maid for a noble family. However, Big Sis is not convinced because a noble family will never hire her given her lack of work experience, so she begs her little sister to stop repeating such nonsense. Suddenly, their front door flips open and their drunk father walks in. Since he's back at home, it can only mean that he's already gambled away the money he took from Estella. He then glares at Reina before throwing the beer bottle at her, enraged that she can't bring him money, while Big Sis begs him to stop. After their father goes, Estella instantly checks to see if Reina is okay, while our girl takes a serious tone, questioning whether they must continue to endure their father's abuse. Although they were fortunate today, She and Estella are both aware that they'll be beaten the next time around. Any tips on how to give a manhwa character a good slap? I'm just itching to knock some sense into their dad. How can he treat his kind and beautiful daughter so badly? Estella suggests they escape together, but Reina swiftly refuses, explaining that their father, who has no money, will undoubtedly chase them. Thus, one of them must stay. Reina goes on to suggest that Estella can come back in a month to check on her because if she fails to be a maid, she will either return home or go where she is. She then holds her sister's hands and assures her that she's braver than she thinks. And she hopes Estella will do the same, causing both sisters to cry and hug each other. Finally, Estella listened to her, and they swiftly packed her belongings before heading to a mule before dawn. Reina has previously spoken with him a few days ago, so after a brief explanation, he readily grasps the situation and offers to look after Estella. Reina is relieved to learn that Amule is a better person than she originally thought. It's not easy to run away, but that lucky guy is in love. Once everything is in place, Estella breaks down in tears and tells Reina to contact her immediately in case something happens to her. Reina tries to collect herself, remembering that her older sister willingly handed herself up to the male lead for her protection. After years of having her big sister take care of her, Reina is ready to put herself in harm's way if it means that Estella has a happy ending. The sun is almost up, so Estella and Amule must depart. So our girl waves them goodbye with a bright smile. When she realizes they're gone, she bursts into tears. Truly, they are sisters who would lay down their lives for each other. My heart goes out to them. After some time, she wipes her tears away because this is only the beginning. Her next plan is to confine their father. The truth is that their father doesn't detest Estella, yet she is also beaten since she always defends Reina. So if you're wondering why our girl is so hated, it's only because she looks just like their mother. In any case, our girl is carrying a large pot of water with ease and placing it outside their father's room door. And just like that, the mission locking this mocker father up is a success. Also, it is a week after she turns 20, and just as she expected, a pretty man with a monocle appears, marking the start of the novel. The guy keeps staring at her pink hair, which she understands because it is incredibly unusual in this world, and it is said in the novel to have the power of seduction. The man then announces himself as Ordi, who works for the Grand Duchy of Karo, which causes our girl to react poorly because he is the man who abducted Estella after threatening her with her younger sister. Ordi uses a serious tone, inviting her to go with him to the Grand Duchy's estate. Reina smiles with joy as her plan to let them take her instead of Estella succeeds. However, our girl still needs to work on her acting skills because she doesn't know how to seem shocked. She then takes a big breath and agrees to his proposal. In the novel, Estella was given a small room, but on Reina's first day, she finds herself in an underground dungeon. She is trying to think of happy thoughts when Ordi shoves her into a dark room and gives her a glare to do her duty by calming the person inside before closing the door. She attempts to speak with Ordi, but a grunt behind her sends shivers down her spine. She calms herself, persuaded that she's not the female lead and that she is the polar opposite of Estella. Therefore, she is confident that the male lead will never fall in love or get obsessed with her. She then turns around to finally face the male lead, the charming, vampire-like successor to the Karo Duchy, Theodore de Karo, who sprints towards her. He's lovely, but girl, you better unleash your Hulk power. Reina manages to evade Theodore because of her quick reflexes, although she does end up with a scrape on her arm. She then observes that this mad dog is chewing on a piece of cloth covered with her blood and begins talking about her smell. She believes he has come back to normal, so she attempts to communicate with him. But as he begins growling, our poor girl cries and runs for her life, all the while claiming he's good at making people confused. She's funny without even trying. As they continue to play tag in the room, she recalls a wise saying from when she was young from a mule. Make eye contact, slowly back away, and make sure you let them know you're not afraid when confronted with a wild beast. Reina pulls it off to perfection, and it works. Theo freezes and appears confused, leading her to cautiously back away, only to tumble over herself. This causes Theo to jump onto her, so she immediately uses her arm as protection. But he bites her, making her scream. She fears that Theo will devour her arm, but much to her surprise, he starts sucking up her blood, and the power of his bite has decreased. This gives her an opportunity to observe him closely. There are heavy bags under his red eyes, scars all over his face like he was hit by a wall, and his nails are broken and covered in wounds. Rina senses his loneliness and pain, which brings up a painful memory of the time she injured herself pounding on the door after her father had locked her up. Even though this is a dark and disturbing novel, its main characters are essentially simply regular individuals dealing with traumas. This split second brings her to reach out, wrapping her arms around him, reassuring him that everything will be all right. Her voice carries a calming quality as she softly repeats those words, gently guiding Theo's eyes back to their original purple hue before he drifts off to sleep. Rina has no trouble carrying him as she positions him to rest on her lap. And just as she thinks this isn't how the novel goes, a pink slime grabs her attention, horrifying her. Wow, that's an unexpected character! Rina is pretty sure that the novel has no monsters or magic, and that the only strange thing in the story is the Caro family's long history of madness, so she can't believe she's looking at this shiny, pink, chunky slime. The slime gets mad and jumps up and down as he tells her that he is a high-ranking demon, not a lowly slime. He calls himself Sujin, which prompts Rina to inquire about his race. But this blob boldly states that he's simply Sujin. Rina chooses to clarify what she said and introduces herself as Rinatis, a human, before again asking about his race. When the blob does not answer, Rina looks away and confirms that he is, in fact, a slime, which irritates Sujin yet again. Rina's focus shifts to Theo, who appears to be in pain, and when she returns her gaze to Sujin, the cute slime has vanished. Will he be of any help to our girl? Meanwhile, Theo is dreaming about when he first developed his madness. His nails become sharp, and he begins to feel anguish from within, so he asks his father's help. But all he receives is a cold order to not lose his mind or he would die, just like his older brother. His father glares at him coldly and tells him not to kill the enchantress, leaving Theo baffled. Theodore has always known that his father, the Duke, does not acknowledge him and has never shown him affection. Theo, though, gets his hopes up because his dad went through the same thing, so he figures he'll say something simple like, "Don't worry, it will end soon." Looks like they both hit the trash pot in the dad department, huh? At that time, Theo has no idea how to deal with the pain, and he can't even use his hands properly due to his sharp claws, driving him to think that dying would be a better option. It came as a surprise, though, when a stranger he had just met offered him comfort, and he unexpectedly felt secure in her embrace. Theo then wakes up in his bed with Ordy by his side. He realizes he has returned to normal, with no more fangs or sharp claws. He instantly sounds frantic in his search for the enchantress, and when he learns that Ordy has kept her locked in the dungeon, he hurriedly rushes out of bed and runs to where she is. He is frightened that he has wounded the girl, so he rushes to her room and gets confused to discover her standing near the table silently. Rina appears to be waiting for someone to enter so she can begin protesting that this isn't the accommodations and food she expected, and most importantly, she wants to eat at least 2 meals each day, causing Theo to freeze, worried that he may have injured her head. I'm totally digging their chemistry. Anyway, they're crazy for locking her up with no food. Theo approaches her and notes how upset she is, causing our girl to pause and get startled that the guy in front of her is Theo. He notices her terrified expression and grins bitterly, commenting that it must be her first encounter with a monster like him. Well, rather than a monster, Rina sees him like a lost child last night. Because she is preoccupied with her thoughts and never responds, Theo assumes she finds him terrifying. Rina begins to playfully deny the accusation and compares him to an adorable bunny, claiming that his red eyes make him both cute and harmless. Now that Rina has a better look at Theo in his normal state, she can clearly tell that he is the romantic novel's male protagonist. Still, she'd rather be around a devoted large dog than a vicious wolf like him, so she's sure she won't develop romantic feelings for Theo. And that bodes well for their professional relationship. Oh, the classic "I will not fall in love" line. Anyway, Theo wonders what she did to him, prompting Rina to argue with him, pointing to her injured arm. It appears that Theo has no recollection of what happened last time, which causes our girl to overthink. If Theo believes she wasn't the one who healed him, he might seek out another enchantress with pink hair, which would lead them to search for her older sister. She begins racking her head, recalling what happened to the female lead when Theo first took her blood. And when she recalls that Estella fainted at that moment, She quickly plays dizzy, but you know our girl has terrible acting abilities, so she just sways around and doesn't know when to fall. Eventually, she decides to pass out, at which point she slammed herself against the floor and began to scream on the inside. Then, to her delight, she overhears Theo instructing someone to take her away to her own room, which gives her the impression that she might have acting talent. However, as she barely opens her eyes, it appears that Theo has already been staring at her. So when he tells her to get up, she promptly stands up and starts laughing. She then runs outside, while Theo chuckles at her poor acting, relieved that he did not harm her as badly as he had feared. After exiting the dungeon with Theo, Orty sent her to a guest room since there were no rooms available at the maid quarters. Jumping into her plush bed, Reina is overjoyed that her room has furniture and that her arm has finally been treated. Orty also tells her that while her front duty is to serve tea to Theodore, her actual task is to contain his madness. He then gives her a maid's attire, which causes our girl to tremble, prompting Orty to explain that they need to disguise her as a maid since Theo's mania is a secret among everyone. To his disbelief, Reina is simply shaking with delight at how lovely the maid's costume is. She likes the ribbon, puffy sleeves, and soft fabric. She has only ever gotten 2 dresses in her life. One is a children's outfit made by her mother, and the other is a birthday gift from her older sister. Aw, it's adorable how she gets all mushy over little things. Unfortunately, that wonderful dress is what she's wearing right now, and she is devastated that it is now covered in blood and torn. She opted to wear it yesterday to impress Theo because it was the best clothes she owned, but now she regrets it and is missing her sister so much. However, Sujin's arrival spoils the mood as he makes fun of her for crying. Because her door is securely shut, she is perplexed as to how Sujin gained access. Her door is locked, so she wonders how Sujin got in and discovers that he entered via a crack in the door. He then says that he merely followed a sweet scent, as he did yesterday, and that leads him to Reina always, so he assumes that the aroma is coming from her. This adorable slime then jumps onto her lap as Reina recalls that Theo also mentioned her scent yesterday, leading her to believe that she may have a smell that only non-human creatures can detect. She tries to recall anything about scent in the story, but the only things that pop into her head are the explicit scenes. Sweetie, you need holy water. Sujin suddenly begins snuggling with her, which Reina finds really adorable. But when Sujin says he'll make her his personal servant, our girl wastes no time using her strength to throw him off. Sujin states that he wants to continue smelling her scent, so he claims that she must stay by his side, and if not a servant, he agrees to adopt her, which only frustrates our girl. Look at him cutely sitting down as he struggles to understand humans, prompting Reina to suggest that they become friends instead. She smiles and allows him to come to her whenever he wants, which causes this cutie patootie to blush and jump up and down. Cuties! Meanwhile, Orty enters Theo's room to deliver Reina's letter, which he nervously receives. The letters begin with a hope that you are well, followed by an inquiry about when he will go crazy again. She also asks if there are any early warning signs that he could become insane, such as eye pain or toothache, and how frequently his craziness occurs so she can prepare herself. Orty is so enraged that Reina labels Theo crazy, but our guy is just fascinated by the unusual picture she adds at the end of the letter, aka an emoji. Back to our girl, her arm begins to ache, most likely because the painkiller has worn off. Sujin becomes concerned and asks whether it hurts a lot, which she finds quite touching, so she beams and claims she's okay now. This is nothing compared to the time her father hurled a chair at her, which caused her to break her arm. Her father is really something. Again, her sad moments are cut short when this curious little slime presses her arm, which causes her to scream. I guess there'll be no dull moments with slime, huh? He explains that he thought she was faking, which causes our girl to begin squeezing and stretching Sujin like real slime. Then she remembers that she'll be in much more misery if Theo loses it again. So she releases the poor slime and starts planning methods to avoid painful situations altogether. She considers a blood transfusion, but she immediately discards it because such medical technology does not yet exist in this novel world. She continues to ponder hard about how to transmit her bodily fluid and blushes as she recalls the R-rated section of this novel, prompting her to punch the floor. Come back, darling. Pure thoughts. Breathe in and out. Sujin chooses to leave since he finds her boring while she devises a plan to use her tears. So she focuses and thinks of her sister to get herself to cry. But then she hears footsteps approaching and she turns around, her eyes welling up with tears, leaving Theo speechless. This prompts him to recall the information he learned from Ordy about Rena, who lives in a shabby house with a drunken father and an older sister. He also knows she locked her father up, but they have no idea where her sister is because even the villagers are unaware. Aside from that, Ordy informs him that the dress Rena is currently wearing is too important to her, prompting Theo to start staring at her, wondering how shabby clothing can be so precious. Anyway, he asks her why she's crying, and because she can't openly tell him that she was going to feed him her tears, she simply replies she's thinking about her family. Theo is certain that when she mentions family, she's not referring to her father, which leads him to conclude that she and her sister are close. He also believes that the reason her dress is so important to her is tied to her sister. So he walks up to her, wipes away her tears, and tells her not to worry. Rena is surprised and quickly decides to divert the subject, gleefully asking why he is in her room and if he's already read her letter. This prompts our innocent guy to quickly grab the letter from his pocket and ask about the emoji, which she explains is a laugh expression. She even makes that same face to prove it. However, when she glances at Theo, she sees for the first time what a puzzled emoji looks like on someone. Anyway, our girl cries internally, and she's glad that she didn't let him eat her tears. No one's judging, sweetie. We'll simply think you're doing everything you can to protect yourself, right, guys? After that, Theo hands her a purse full of gold coins, declaring it as compensation for damaging her clothing. So Rena checks the amount and starts screaming because it's 2 million Luna, which is enough to buy more than 20 dresses and at least several months' worth of their household expenses. She realizes there might be a consequence if she accepts it, so she returns it, claiming that her dress is precious to her but the money is too much. However, when Theo uses a cool male lead line like, "Some things are just too precious beyond money," she gives in and gladly accepts it. Rena begins to smile widely as she plans to save it for later use with her sister, and she even gives Theo a sweet smile as she thanks him again, which brings a smile to his face as well. Her erratic behavior continues to baffle him. She can be sobbing one second and laughing the next. Plus, the memory of Rena's compliment about him being a cute rabbit makes him blush. Looks like we found who will fall in love first. It's been months, and our girl has been spending 2 hours each day learning about tea, while the rest of her time is spent eating and playing. Rena is now in bed, enjoying how everything appears to be going well, but she begins to feel nervous because it has been 10 months since she arrived in the duchy, but Theo remains normal. She sits up and cutely wakes Sujin, who refuses to even listen to her since he knows that she'll ask him to see how Theo is doing. True, but more importantly, Rena is troubled by Sujin's habit of calling Theo male, and requests that he use the term man. The pink slime agrees and even cutely reveals that he is a man slime, causing our girl to gasp, shock, freeze, scared, or whatever you name that expression because she had no idea Sujin was a boy. Now you know, dear. Now you know. The following morning, a maid named Claire awakens her from her sleep and promptly informs her that she has arrived to fetch her, as it is customary for all staff to welcome the return of Grand Duke Caro from his patrol. In the novel, Theo's father wields power similar to the Emperor, although he is better known for his ruthlessness. Look how he mistreats his own son, so I'm not surprised. As she lowers her head, she can't shake the feeling that maybe she did something to make the scary guy in front of her look like he wants to kill her. After a moment, the Duke starts to probe her identity as the so-called Enchantress, prompting her to gaze at him in surprise. Claire then quickly advises her to keep her head down, worried that Ordy, watching from afar, may reprimand her later for almost being late. She goes back to her position, really surprised by the Duke's cold tone, the way they treat others like they're just things, and the look that sees her as just a tool for their own gain. She knows for sure that he's someone she doesn't want to deal with again. That day, Rita, Theodore's nanny, allows Rena to observe her as she serves tea to him. Rena, who practices making tea every day, is finally going to make tea for Theodore for the first time, and our poor girl silently bids farewell to her pleasant days. Rita then knocks on his door, but to their surprise, he just tells them to leave since he isn't interested in tea, which makes Rena secretly celebrate for getting her favorite job back, aka not doing anything, but she can't shake off this strange feeling of sadness. While walking down the hallway, Rena asks Rita about what's bothering Theo, leading Rita to reveal that Theo and the Grand Duke Caro don't share a common understanding, and his mood tends to decline whenever the Grand Duke comes back home. This makes her think about her own difficult relationship with her father, but she keeps pushing through thanks to her sister's support. However, she can't help but wonder if Theodore truly has no one he can consider family, and finds it odd because in the novel, Theodore comes off as this ruthless and cruel guy who really hurts her big sis, and now she's actually worried about him. Following Theodore's decision to not have tea that day, Raina wanders aimlessly and discovers the cool nap spot Sujin had mentioned. The grass is soft, and the large trees offer plenty of shade, creating a cozy atmosphere that invites her to drift off to sleep. The unexpected noise of someone counting loudly catches her off guard, leading her to explore where it's coming from. To her surprise, she encounters a topless hunk man, prompting her to wonder about his presence. Raina remembers the red-haired guy carrying Theo, glaring at her and abandoning her in the dungeon on her first day. She has no idea why this man is practicing in a place like this, but she doesn't care given that he has made it clear that he dislikes her since the first time they met, so she chooses to just go back. That's what she said, but our girl's eyes are fixed on him and she can't stop raving over his great muscles, which are just her type. If he were only taller though, she would be completely satisfied. She didn't get a good look at his face because it was dark in the dungeon, but now she admits that he is really gorgeous, and his red hair and blue eyes suit his features flawlessly. Suddenly, red hair and blue eyes bring back memories for her, and when the man moves towards her, she is shocked to discover that this attractive man is none other than Instrud Glauses. Instrud is Theo's personal knight in the novel, but he is more than just an extra because he fell in love with the female lead, Estrella, and even tried to help her escape, but failed and died tragically. So he's the second male lead in the original, right? This guy still refuses to trust Raina, so he questions how she knows his name, prompting her to hurriedly lie that Orty told her he's Theo's bodyguard. If a gaze could kill, she'd be dead right now, and she hates it because she adored him in the novel. However, she knows why Instrud distrusts her because even in the story, he does not believe an enchantress can quiet Theo's madness. Why? Because while Estrella's body fluid may calm Theo's lunacy, it simply fueled his obsession with her and drove him more insane. Raina wants to really connect with him, but the fact that he abandoned her in the dungeon still irritates her. And she isn't the female lead whom he'll fall in love with, so her expression is quite grumpy right now. Meanwhile, Instrud asks her why she's hiding, prompting her to grumpily respond that she's simply taking a nap. But he cuts her off because he assumes he knows where the conversation is going. He then apologizes and strongly states that he has no interest in kids like her, leaving our girl dumbfounded in shock. When she disputes this, Instrud doesn't even listen and simply says that he expects her to fall in love considering that he's a handsome and amazing knight. This is beginning to annoy our girl, so she screams and reveals her ideal type of a very tall guy with 20 kilogram more muscle than he has to meet her tastes. Worse, this is simply the bare minimum, horrifying Instrud and sending him to the ground in defeat. Oh dear sir, fret not. I like you just the way you are. When Raina triumphs in battle, she turns to leave, but when Instrud urges her to wait and prepares to stop her, she looks in his direction, and the sight of his enormous hand brings back a flood of images of her father. She cries out in a panic, apologizes greatly, and then ducks for cover, her ears tightly shut, shocking Instrud. This further shows the extent of her mistreatment. When she returns to her senses, she gasps for air and simply states that she was shocked, before changing the subject and asking what he wants from her. After witnessing that, Instrud merely states that she has a leaf stuck in her hair and then stares at her for some time, clearly unsure of how to console her. Still, he holds both of her shoulders and shyly advises her to keep going, leaving our girl confused. This seems more like a sister-brother dynamic than a romantic one to me. The truth is, he wants to ask her whether she knows of any alternative treatments that can aid Lord Theodore. When he first heard the myth about the duchy's cursed bloodline and enchantresses, he dismissed it as absurd. However, when he watched the first time Theo went insane and his eyes turned red, he accepted it as true, but he could still not believe that a girl could calm his master down. His train of thinking is abruptly interrupted by the gentle voice of Rinatis, who warmly introduces herself. He feels awkward as he does the same, and they shake hands. All the while, he can't help but wonder if this defenseless little girl can save Theo. Rina has completed her on-the-job training to serve tea with Aunt Rita, and now she receives approval to serve tea on her own. Do the words alone and tea trigger any ideas in you? Yes, here is Rina's chance to secretly make Theo her body fluid, specifically her saliva. Like they say, desperate times call for desperate measures. Currently, she is pacing outside Theo's room before settling down due to the overwhelming guilt she feels. She considers it for a second before deciding it would be the best for Theo. So she takes a look at the tea and is just about to make the decision when, out of the blue, Theo opens his door. Trembling, Rina looks at him and, has no choice but to gulp down her potion. They head inside, and as she prepares his tea, she looks over at him and is relieved to find his eyes purple, nails clean, and most importantly, he's just reading a book like a model. Her gaze moves over the book Theo is holding, and she sees it is about poems, which are often short, but she has yet to see him flip a page. She then glances up and discovers he's been staring at her. Theo asks if she likes books, and she honestly responds no, claiming that they are boring and make her sleepy, which causes him to stare at her in disbelief. He looks very innocent and cute. This also causes him to wonder whether there's anything she likes. Her obvious answer is her sister, but because she believes he's talking about hobbies, she firmly responds that she enjoys eating yummy food. She begins talking about how much she enjoys living in the duchy because she gets to try new foods like steak and grilled fish. Even if what she's saying isn't exactly a hobby, Theo finds himself smiling at the fact that he actually doesn't mind her response. Oh, I don't think he'll be the first to fall. It's me, guys, it's me! He's using the book to cover up his lovely smile. He wants to continue chatting with her, so he asks what else she ate recently and motions for her to sit down on the couch. She follows and tells him that she recently saw for the first time a dessert called pudding, but it didn't get to her turn, so she couldn't try it. This confuses Theo, so she states that because pudding is expensive, they don't make a lot of it, and any leftovers are given first to high-ranking or older employees, prompting Theo to make a mental note of it. They keep on discussing meals, and she even finds out from him that poisonous food can be eaten by humans. As strange as it seems, Rina finds that Theo isn't terrifying at all. In fact, she feels happy around him, leading her to wish that Theo feels the same way. Aw, see how comfortable they are compared to the first time they met? That night, as Theo can't help but smile as he thinks of Rina's hobby, he feels an intense rush of headaches and his body starts to feel weird. When Orty knocks on his door to deliver a message, Theo tries to calm himself down and assures Orty that he's all right. However, he is shocked when Orty informs him that Lady Pablo will be visiting tomorrow to have lunch with the Duchess and then tea with him. Theo's mother already has 3 potential candidates for his wife. One of them is the lady who will be visiting. However, Theo is unaware of or uninterested in their identities. His mother wished he would die, but he is now finding it amusing that she's using him for political gain. Gosh, his entire family is toxic. Meanwhile, Sujin gets frustrated because he believes a human cannot eat toxic food, although Rina, who has been sharing with him what she learned from Theo, claims it may be eaten as long as the poison is removed. These 2 besties are so wholesome. However, they decide to sleep, and as she drifts off, she realizes that not all nobles are uncomfortable to be with. However, the next day, I believe Rina will reconsider her statement because she is so uncomfortable right now. The lady is now in Theo's room, and while Rina serves them tea, the blonde lady clearly flirts, but Theo only responds briefly. Our girl takes a quick look at the lady and thinks she's really pretty. Moreover, her delicate aura reminds her of her sister. She then looks at Theo and finds his hand shaking. At first, she guesses he is nervous to talk to a lady, but then she notices his eyes have turned red. So she calls the lady and claims that today is not the best day for tea. Oh no, you can't trust the blonde girlies in Manhwa. Be cautious, my dear. In this world, unless absolutely necessary, a maid is not permitted to speak to a noble without permission. So Rina expects the noble lady to be furious. But to her surprise, the girl simply smiles and asks Theo to let the maid leave. Rina instantly steps in front of Theo to hide his red eyes from the lady, asking her to have some tea the next time. Unless you want to die now and, no, next time, that is. The lady stares at Rina with that disgusting, definitely disguised happy expression. while Raina says in a shaky voice that Theo isn't feeling well and can barely answer. Fortunately, the lady did not persist, saying farewell to Theo and leaving the room, but she secretly and evilly glares at Raina. Oh boy, here we go. The witchy blonde is on the loose. With no one else around, Theo starts groaning in pain, and Raina decides to spit on the tea and let him drink it. However, before she can do so, he grabs her and is about to bite her neck. So she braces herself. But as she opens her eyes, our poor Theo has his head down, fighting to resist the desire. Raina feels awful watching him struggle, so she kisses him, which surprises Theo. Looks like Theo isn't the only one going crazy. Our girl is too, because despite having read lots of R-18 novels, she has never held a man's hand, much less been in a relationship. Her attention shifts to his small fangs, which she finds adorable before breaking their kiss. But she's taken aback when he kisses her again. She lets him be and convinces herself that this is only a treatment for Theo's madness. After that, Theo passes out, and thankfully, Ordy arrives just in time to take over. But our girl can't help but blush when she sees Theo blushing and flustered before he collapses. When Raina wakes up the next morning, she quickly gets out of bed, causing Sujin to stumble, and he learns that she really wants to see if Theodore is all right. Raina hurries down the hallway, her mind focused on Theo, who appeared composed the last time they met, but she feels compelled to assess his condition for herself. She is still in the process of figuring things out when a maid she doesn't recognize suddenly calls out to her, letting her know that someone is in the backyard looking for her and that she should hurry up. This is definitely a trap. As Raina walks to the backyard, she can't help but think about who might be searching for her, since the only person who knows she's there is her friend Sujin. Raina keeps thinking about all of the possible reasons someone could be looking for her when, out of nowhere, a maid grabs her hair from behind, totally surprising her. But what a mistake! Our girl is strong enough to throw the maid off her back and send her flying forward. Exactly what she deserved. Raina then hears a voice cursing at the maid for not being able to make Raina kneel, prompting Raina to turn her way and see it as none other than Lady Pablo, who is holding an umbrella to shield herself from the scorching sun. Yes, witch, hold that plastic like you might melt. Lady Pablo casually recounts how Raina, a lowly maid, kicked her out, and with an innocent smile, she contemplates how to eliminate Raina to ease her own discomfort. Raina wants to explain the situation to Lady Pablo, but she's unsure how to do so without revealing Theo's condition, which causes her to stammer. However, this furious lady is determined to exact her revenge, so she calls for her maid. Instantly, the maid pushes Raina's head down, making her kneel in front of Lady Pablo, who insists that she stay on the dirty ground. At this moment, Raina realizes that the noble lady in front of her doesn't care about what really happened. She just feels upset and is directing those feelings at her. In this case, she knows that all she can do is beg forgiveness. So when the maid behind her raises her hand and slaps her, she accepts it all. The slaps end just as the sun sets, and our poor girl's face is bright red, and her voice trembles as she apologizes. Our girl chooses not to use her strength, witch. You're lucky. When Raina stops apologizing, it irritates Lady Pablo, prompting her maid to slap her again. Raina then closes her eyes, bracing herself for the maid's hand to strike her face again, only to be surprised when it doesn't. As she opens her eyes, it surprises her to see Instrum clutching the maid's hand, asking what's going on. Yes, sir, please help! Despite his confusion, Instrum manages to inform the maid that the annex of the House of Caro is a restricted area for outsiders, and insists that she leave at once. However, the maid firmly refuses to follow his command and assuredly tells him that she's with Lady Pablo, prompting Instrum to quickly apologize for his behavior. He then introduces himself and clarifies that, as Theodore's personal knight, he is focused on ensuring the mansion's security. Upon discovering that Instrum is a knight of noble birth, Lady Pablo swiftly changes her demeanor and introduces herself to him. She then casually mentions that she had a quick tea with Theodore yesterday, but something unfortunate happened, and claims that she is currently in the process of disciplining the maid who caused that incident. This prompts Instrum to glance at Raina, and he sighs before ensuring Lady Pablo that he understands her feelings, leading Raina to hold back her urge to clarify that she's merely trying to save Theodore and Lady Pablo. However, Raina is taken aback when Instrum approaches her, blatantly stating that Lord Theodore values his own people, and advises Lady Pablo to be aware of this if she wishes to become one. I am absolutely obsessed with this redhead even more. This prompts the lady to stop for a moment before turning away, stating that she thinks Rina has been given sufficient guidance from her, so she chooses to leave while her maid trails behind her. You go, girl, and don't come back. After that, Rina starts to worry, feeling like Instrud is in a risky spot because of her. But she stumbles over her words trying to explain, while Instrud loses his composure as he asks if she's okay. Even though she insists she's doing just fine, he squishes her face and claims she doesn't look okay at all. Her lips are cracked, and she's got quite a few injuries. He keeps checking on her and notices her face is swollen and her palm is scraped, prompting this adorable guy to start to really panic and urges her to follow him, holding her hands tightly. Meanwhile, Theo is walking down the corridor, feeling confused because the previous time his craziness struck, his memories were blurry, but this time, everything is vivid. So he decides to see Rina and talk to her. However, as he gets closer to her room, he hears some voices that catch him off guard. It's Instrud's voice coming from Rina's room, and as he listens in, he misinterprets the situation. He ends up pushing the door open only to find Instrud just applying a healing ointment around Rina's mouth, which makes his face turn red. To avoid further embarrassment, he simply instructs them to continue their activities, which causes confusion for Instrud and Rina, but she is relieved to see him in good health. When Ordi sees Theo walking in the corridor, he sighs with relief and informs him that he's been looking for him, concerned about his disappearance from his room. When Theo doesn't react, Ordi assumes he's not feeling well again, so he grabs him. But when Theo turns around and has that red face, Ordi finds it odd and urges him to call the doctor right away. Blushing Theo is so my type. Ordi keeps following Theo around as he is really worried about him, and he begs him to eat something, or at least tell him if there's anything he might want to eat. And to his surprise, Theo says he likes pudding. A little time later, Claire gives Rina the velvety, creamy pudding of her dreams, explaining that it is actually from Lord Theodore. He requested 20 puddings but ate only one, so each maid gets one of the remaining. Aw, Theo really made sure she got to eat one. Claire then smilingly says that she knows how much Rina has been craving pudding for some time, so she promptly brings it to her, hoping that it may speed up her recovery. Claire seems really concerned for Rina, which makes her feel loved, and now realizes that Claire is treating her more comfortably. Sujin appears after Claire has left, shocked by Rina's bruised face and curious as to what happened. But she ignores his reaction and shifts the topic to the pudding she's holding. However, Sujin is so furious that he keeps on bouncing, grumbling about how she can be so excited about eating while looking so messed up. Then he starts yelling, demanding to know who attacked her. He shows no signs of stopping, so Rina tells him what happened. Sujin is upset about Rina being beaten up and instantly wants to know the name of the Count's daughter. But Rina stops him and explains in a serious tone that she is not interested in wasting her time thinking about people who hate her. This kind soul simply wishes to focus on the people who love and appreciate her, such as Instrud, who treated her wound, Claire, who lifted her spirits, Ordi, who is grouchy but still orders her to rest, Aunt Rita, who worries over her, and Sujin, who gets furious for her. She's way too precious and must be protected at all costs. This appeases the enraged slime, and he begins to blush at the thought of being included in Rina's loved ones, leading Rina to tease him for how touched he appears. He flat out denies it, but Rina sees through his embarrassment and gives him some of her pudding nevertheless. After eating some pudding, she too falls head over heels for it, which brings to mind the fact that she had forgotten about Theodore, the guy who brought her the pudding on her list. The next day, as his personal night, Instrud meets with Theo to urge that they increase security around the annex, the residence where Theo lives. Theo initially dismisses it, but is astonished when Instrud informs him that there was an outsider yesterday, notably Lady Pablo. The lady was invited to his home 2 days ago, so he is a little puzzled, prompting Instrud to tell him more about how Lady Camilla, so-called disciplined a rude maid, Rinatis. I love how Instrud uses the security thing as an excuse, but deep down, he really wants to report on what happened to Rina and Camilla. Theo is so taken aback that he now realizes why Instrud was tending to Rina's injuries yesterday. He then exhales sharply, his voice chilling as he utters the witch's name once more before shooting that "I will make sure to make you suffer" expression. Serious Theo has this whole mysterious vibe going on, and I'm totally here for it. Meanwhile, Raina is on her way to Theo's chamber to bring him tea, and it appears that our girl is in a good mood after eating pudding yesterday. Plus, her wounds have healed fairly well overnight. When she sees my sweet knight exit Theo's room, she uses the chance to thank him for his assistance the day before. To her amazement, Instrum pats her head and begins giggling, telling her not to upset the people around her again. The two of them begin to bicker, which Theo overhears, so he grumpily opens his door and sarcastically remarks that the two are acting too friendly in front of his room. Raina then enters Theo's room, while Instrum observes them and smiles, calling our girl a little sheep. She is, in fact, a helpless lamb at the moment because this charming guy with the wolf-like stare on his face just won't let go of her. Even though she isn't completely healed yet, she still chooses to work today, which annoys him a little. By the way, he found out from Orty that she had never left the mansion before, so he tells her to get ready right now because they're going to use the money he gave her previously, which makes our girl cry inside because she's trying to save it. They are now about to ride the carriage, and Instrum, my love, is simply there, smiling so sweetly as Theo makes up an excuse that he has to be in the shopping area for work, so they can just go together while Raina isn't interested in going at all. Where are they going? Oh, indeed, Raina's worst nightmare. A high-end dress boutique. As she frets over finding the most affordable dress, an angry woman interrupts. I already know where this is headed. Every time the female lead goes dress shopping, you know the story will follow a certain formula, right? Without a doubt, the owner is the one who yells at our girl, and she seizes the dress that Raina is holding. The owner begins yapping that the clothing she sells is absolutely not something Raina can buy, and she even furiously gestures at our girl as she orders her to leave immediately. Yes, a classic garbage owner. At the same time, poor Raina does nothing more than stare down, tighten her fist, and then thank the owner cheerfully. She is definitely unpredictable. She smiles, relieved that she'll not be wasting her money, and even shakes hands with the confused owner when Theo appears. Handsome? Check. Radiates class? Check. And the expensive suit? Check. The owner's eyes go ka-ching, ka-ching, as she recognizes Theo is a noble, so she instantly covers up Raina and even shoos her away, which Raina understands because, unlike Theo, whose presence is already expensive, she exudes a poor commoner aura. However, she gets surprised when Theo comes to her side and asks the owner what she did to his friend, causing the owner to freeze. Raina looks at Theo and notices that he is upset, while the owner bows and apologizes to Theo. However, girl, you are apologizing to the wrong person. So our guy corrects her and orders her to apologize to Raina. After that, Theo says that they are going to another store, while Raina follows from behind, unable to believe this is how the female lead feels when they receive assistance from the male lead, which is somewhat refreshing. They return to the carriage where Instrum is waiting, and Theo instructs him to go to another store. While Instrum considers where to go next, Raina proposes they go home. Theo suspects she feels uneasy over what happened, so he assures her that he'll be by her side this time, which frustrates our girl because if this continues, she'll be forced to buy a dress she doesn't want. This forces her to be honest and yell that she likes cash, which confuses Theo. She explains that she wants to continue accumulating money so that when Theo gets well, she can leave the duchy and live with the person she loves. She's clearly referring to her sister, but the two boys presume she has a lover. Theo pauses for a moment before agreeing that they should go home. And now our girl's hard-earned money is safe and she can't wait to rest. My sweet darling must have exhausted herself today because the moment she gets in the carriage, she starts to drool and nod off, while Theo sits there quietly thinking about her plan to leave for good with someone she loves someday. The truth is that shopping is only an excuse. Theo simply wants to make her happy today because he feels terrible that she was hit because of him. As he continues to watch Raina sleeping, he notices that her hair is bothering her, so he stands up and gently fixes it for her. He then begins to blame his condition. If not for his madness, Raina would never be dragged to the duchy. Thus, he believes she must despise him. However, his gloomy thoughts are jolted out when Raina begins to dream about food, even smiling while she dreams of pudding. Looks like pudding has officially claimed the title of her favorite food, huh? According to what his father has taught him, enchantresses are nothing more than tools to help calm down their madness, which is why he desperately clung to Raina's lips the last time. However, our guy has apparently come to a realization that is bringing a smile to his face right now. No enchantress, as far as he is aware, can make someone feel better simply by glancing at them. But Raina does this to him right now. And somehow being with Raina gives him hope that maybe dying won't be as horrible as he imagined it would be. A young Theodore is crying in a forest when he's spotted by his older brother, who reaches out to him and offers to listen to his problem. However, as soon as Theo takes his hand, everything goes dark and his hand is covered in blood. His brother caresses his cheek with a bloodied hand, reminding him that he inherited the cursed blood and will end up exactly like him. Just when Raina gave him hope, his brother breaks the news that he has no future and cannot escape his certain fate. Theo slumps to his knees, paralyzed with fear, as he observes his brother lying on the ground, covered in blood with numerous arrows lodged in his back. His jaw tenses up and he starts panicking, but he can't bring himself to yell. Fortunately, it's just a nightmare, and the first person he sees is a startled Raina carrying a blanket. She quickly says that she brought tea, but noticed that he was asleep, so she chooses to just cover him up with something while he breathes in relief that what he saw was only a dream. Raina continues to tell about how her sister once warned her that the weather they were experiencing today is prone to colds, which makes Theo realize that she must be close to her big sis. Raina heartily confirms this, stating that her sister is so sweet that she basically raised her on her own. This captures Theo's interest, so he keeps asking and discovers that her older sister was only 22 when their mother died. However, she realizes she should stop telling him about her sister and hastily changes the subject, asking if Theo is an only child. She is surprised when Theo states he has an older brother because the novel never mentions it, and traditionally the eldest son should be the heir, therefore, she wonders why Theo is the heir. Her mind runs wild again, and she guesses if the Caro's family eldest son is an alcoholic or an abuser, or perhaps he abandoned the mansion because he fell in love with a commoner lady. That's what happens when you read too many novels. She then asks with a smile where his older brother is, but is taken aback when Theo casually reveals that his brother passed away 18 years ago from madness, and right before his eyes. He really said, "You ask and you shall receive." This is getting awkward, so she asks if they never found an enchantress like her, and then she finds that they did, but his brother couldn't manage his madness and killed the enchantress. When the lady died, his older brother went on a frenzy, prompting their father to shoot him, and Theo witnessed it all firsthand. Raina can't help but feel awful for Theo after hearing his story, since while she doesn't know if the two brothers are close, she gets how traumatizing it is to witness your family kill someone, especially his father killing his brother. Theo takes note of her shaking and believes it must be due to him sharing something terrifying. After all, he can never tell when he could cause harm to her as well. They have no idea that they're worrying over one another. Just hug already! He then asks her to leave, but Raina surprises him by wrapping him in the blanket, making him blush. After that, she holds his face and promises him that everything will be alright since she knows he would never hurt anyone. She also bursts out that she's a strong woman who will not die easily before apologizing and continuing with her usual yapping while Theo remains still as he feels the warmth. Perhaps from the blanket, but most definitely from the pink-haired girl sunshine we have here. That evening, Raina seeks advice from her bestie Slime on how to help Theo escape a depressing life. But Sujin finds this absurd because Theo is already wealthy and lives a better life than her. This slime really knows how to hit a nerve in her, yet she continues to clarify that happiness cannot be bought with money, just as she is content living simply with her sister. This makes sense to Sujin, so he recommends another approach to make someone better. Have the female make the male feel better. Raina is flustered and can't believe Sujin has learned such things, so she starts squishing him again. But it turns out our innocent slime is merely talking about massages. He reveals that receiving a massage from another male gives him the creeps, so he thinks that receiving it from a girl will make Theo feel better, prompting our girl to declare him a genius. Sujin seems astounded to be dubbed a genius, while Raina has decided to turn this dark, bitter novel into a healing story.